A pleasant day to everyone. Before we start, I would like to remind our participants of our webinar house rules. Please observe proper decorum from this point onwards. We have provided the Zoom background in the chat box, and we encourage everyone to use it during the webinar. If you have any questions for the resource speakers, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat box, and our moderator will be reading it later during the question and answer session. For the online attendance and evaluation, the link will be displayed after we finish all the sessions, so please stay tuned until the end of the webinar. We also strongly encourage all participants to log their attendance as soon as possible, since the online attendance form will only be available for 15 minutes. Once you submit your attendance, you will receive an email for the procedures of evaluation and claiming of your certificate. And now, allow me to start this webinar as I greet everyone a very good afternoon from the Philippines, and welcome to our esteemed guests and participants. My name is Stephanie Rimas, the Research Publications and Information Division Assistant at the Colombo Flagstaff College, and I will be your host for today. Welcome to the international webinar on From Skills to Security, Empowering TVET Through Cyber Capacity Building. We're now on our second webinar in this year's series of knowledge sharing among our member countries and beyond. As our frequent participants may know, and also for the information of the newcomers of our webinars, CPSC is hosting a series of free international webinars for TVET professionals, educators, and practitioners to share knowledge on the emerging topics in CVET. Today, we will be exploring the alignment of cybersecurity with TVET's transformative role in human capital development as reflected in the Sustainable Development Goals, and we will also get to know more of the importance of digital identity and trust, particularly in protecting learners and institutions
We cannot hear you, Stephanie.
You're breaking up.
Hello? So I was
Now it's
saying,
okay.
so
Yeah,
I
now,
was saying in this webinar, we will dive into strategic and practical dimensions of cybersecurity in CVET, as well as the best practices and policy innovations that will help in shaping a CVET system towards the market needs and SDG agenda. With our esteemed resource speakers who are notably experts in cybersecurity, we hope this webinar will provide you with new knowledge and know more of their best practices that will help you as trainers and practitioners. As we officially commence today's session, it is with great honor and enthusiasm to introduce to you the webinar supervisor. He is the 13th CPSC Director General and the 5th Director General from India, who joined with CPSC last September 2024. Prior to his directorship, he was a former Dean for Academic and International Affairs, a professor, and a head in the Department of Entrepreneurship Development and Industrial Coordination at the National Institute of Technical Teachers Training and Research in Chandigarh, India. He has also served CPSC for 3 years as a governing board engaged faculty consultant from September 2005 to September 2008. During his stint in CPSC, he handled the Training and Development Division, Research and Development Division, General Services Division, and the Asia Pacific Accreditation and Certification Commission or APAC. He has visited more than 30 countries for conducting training programs and consultancy assignments, and also initiated the accreditation of technical institutions in the Asia Pacific region in 2008. He has done accreditations in the Philippines, Bangladesh, India, and Malaysia. In research, he has published more than 60 papers in international and national journals, presented 143 papers in international and national conferences, and has chaired technical sessions in many international and national conferences. For publications, he has authored 7 books and edited 15 books in the area of environmental engineering, environmental management, CVET, entrepreneurship, and has guided 6 PhDs and many MTech students. He is also a member of the Task Force on Women and Youth Entrepreneurship at UNESCAP Bangkok. He earned his bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering, followed by MBA and doctorate degree in business management from premier universities in India. He has a total work experience of 40 years in teaching, training, and research. Please join me in giving a virtual round of applause to Professor Dr. Suresh Kumar Damaja as he delivers his welcome remarks. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Stephanie, and thank you so much for a very exhaustive, you know, information about me. I think that was not required, but in any case, thank you so much. At the very outset, as the Director General of CPSC, let me welcome all the participants to this international webinar, and I also welcome as well as thank the two resource persons from two different countries who will be delivering their talks in this international webinar. Uh, Quite recently, we have started this concept of conducting international webinars, and we do it once in 2 months. So we conduct 6 international webinars in a year, and our year starts from the July. So July to June, that is our fiscal year. So this is the second international webinar in this year, 2025-2026. The topic for this international webinar is very apt. It is on empowering TVET through cyber capacity building. I think, you know, uh, TVET is gaining a lot of ground nowadays. In fact, whenever I go to any country, I meet, very senior people, ministers, secretaries, deputy secretaries, and all the senior people. And everybody's talking about the TVET nowadays. I was talking to a friend of mine. He said that if you look around, the whole world is made by the Tibet people. And I think he was quite right to some extent. So Tibet is really gaining ground because nowadays, if you see, like if you see in developed countries or even the developing countries, the people who are skillful, those who have the hands-on skills with them, so they can really survive. They can get a job. They can set up their own self-employment ventures, and people who are just degree holders, like white collar jobs, so they may or they may not get a job. They are unemployed, they are underemployed, and but the people who have the skills, hands-on skills with them, they can go to any part of the world and then they can work over there. In fact, I have been to many developed countries. We talk of Canada, we talk of US, all those countries, even the European countries also. The people who are TVET skilled, they are earning much, much more over there, but somehow the image is a little second class so far. But the things are changing, the timings are changing, because previously there was a lot of focus on the education status, but now the shift is taking towards the money status. If you can earn more money, maybe you are much more in demand. And I can surely tell you that the people who are TVET qualified and TVET educated, they are earning much more money at least in the developed countries, if not the developing countries. But whatever happens in the developed countries, it automatically comes to developing countries after some time. So it's just a matter of time that it comes to the developing countries as well. Yesterday, I was participating in a In a workshop, there is a Don Bosco group of institutions over here in the Philippines. They have quite a large number of TVET institutions, colleges, and other universities, etc. So they had organized a very big, a symposium or a conference in which they invited many top people and including the ambassadors and the secretaries of the, TESTA. TESTA is the Technical Education Skills Development Authority of the Philippines, Department of Education, Commission on Higher Education. So there were many top people over there. And the agenda of that conference was reshaping the Philippines TVET system. So I was as a panelist over there. I was invited as a panelist over there, and I also delivered a keynote, speech also over there. So, there were many people from different backgrounds and from the industries as well, from the academia, from the world of work, from the administration, from the diplomatic corps. And everybody was talking of the TVET, how we can really take the TVET, forward. So I think TVET is really gaining ground. And when you talk of TVET, I think Philippines is doing much better job. The test over here is really doing a fantastic job over here. And I think the many countries from the South Asia, especially I'm talking of, they can learn a lot from this, the TVET model of the test in the Philippines. In fact, we keep on getting many delegations from South Asia who come here to the Philippines to understand the TVET system of the test. Even if you go to their website, you will see that how remarkably well they're doing over here. And this specific topic of this cyber capacity and cyber security, it is also gaining very ground nowadays. See, everything is getting digitized. In fact, in the next week, we are conducting a training program on digitization of TVET systems in Sri Lanka. It's next week from 13 to 17. So everything is getting digitized. And when you talk of the digitization, so the fear of this cyber, attacks. In fact, we keep on, reading a lot of news regarding many, frauds and all those things. So cyber security is again gaining a lot of ground. And so with this we have two very eminent resource persons from two different countries who shall be speaking on this topic. In fact, if you go to this multilateral and bilateral this thing agencies, they are giving a lot of funds for the cybersecurity projects also, and we are trying to have some projects on cybersecurity in the CPSC also. That is how, because when I was in India, so we had set up a complete lab, getting funds from the government of India, and they are funding quite a lot. So I think this is again one of the very niche areas, cybersecurity in the field of TVET. So I think the topic is very apt, and I would like to really compliment the RPID division, the Research Publications Information Division, led by Ms. Lynn Monge, who is the RPID officer, Ms. Stephanie Rimas, who is the RPID assistant. Both are working really very hard over here. In CPSC being an international, and we have less number of staff over here. The people are, I normally say that, one person of CPSC is equal to five people of, outside. So we are just like five people of, so we are working extremely hard. And these two, the ladies are doing extremely, good job. And the things have really picked up once Miss Arlene Monge has joined us. She joined, I think, around 4 or 5 months back. And the things have really picked up. So, my congratulations once again to the RPID division. I would like to once again welcome all the participants whether through the bottom of my heart. And please keep on joining us in this international webinars. We learn quite a lot. We listen to the speakers from different countries. We listen to the experiences, and then we have a question answer session also. So please listen to them and then ask those questions to them so that we can learn quite a lot from their experiences. With this, I once again wish, this webinar a great success. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gigi, for sharing your insights about the significance of cybersecurity in Tibet, and also for your unending support to CPSC and with RPID. So at this juncture, allow me to welcome our moderator who shall be connecting us with our two speakers for today. So let us all welcome Ms. Arlene Monghe, the Research Publications and Information Division Officer here at the Columba Blanca College.
Thank you, Ms. Stephanie. And again, thank you to our Director General for your kind words. And now, ladies and gentlemen, with the highlight of our webinar for today, our first speaker is a seasoned cybersecurity practitioner, educator, and researcher with over 2 decades of experience in information technology and security. He currently holds the distinctions of Doctor of Computer Science and Doctor in Information Technology and is a PhD student at Bina Nusantara University in Indonesia. His career spans a broad technical trajectory covering application and software development, operating systems, infrastructure, networking, secure programming, and security operations. He is also a well-known he's also well known as a Microsoft certified trainer, conducting trainings in the Asia Pacific, Middle East, Africa, and the Philippines on topics like vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, IT audit, and computer forensics. On the research side, he has contributed to advancing cybersecurity through papers and conference work. A notable publication of his is entitled The Crucial Role of Red Teaming, Strengthening Indonesia's Cyber Defenses through Cybersecurity Drill Test, which explores integrating red teaming exercises and the MITRE ATT&CK framework to improve threat detection and organizational resilience. He has also published works on security maturity models and compliance, such as PCI DSS. Ladies and gentlemen, without much further ado, let us all welcome for our first session, Dr. Sammy Yulianto, DIT, DCCS, CIS, SP. Good afternoon, sir, from the Philippines.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay. So let's just go straight to the it's gonna be very short, perhaps 15, 20 minutes presentation, and we'll have a discussion regarding this. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And my name is Sammy. You can just call me Sammy Yulianto or Yulianto. So my topic today is about empowering TVET through cyber capacity building. Now, the agenda for today is first we'll discuss about the TVET and cyber capacity building, and then we will move on to the role of skills in cybersecurity, then assessing current cybersecurity needs, move on to the curriculum integration of cybersecurity, and then partnership for effective capacity building, challenges in implementation, and finally, future direction of the TVET and cybersecurity. Yeah, so I'll start with the introduction to the TVET and cybersecurity building. Now, as you know that the technical and vocational education and training, or known as the TVET or TVET, equips individual with practical and practical skills and knowledge, thereby enhancing employability and definitely would actually enforce, yeah, I mean, meeting and for workforce needs in various sector. So here in Indonesia, we also have this kind of technical and vocational education and training provided by the uh, government, yeah, to bridge the what do you call this? The development of knowledge and skills of the individuals, yeah, so that they could easily be accepted and work in different sectors. Now, the historical context and evolution of the TVET has the TVET starts with the traditional apprentices model to modern education system. It adapts the technological advancement and technological demands throughout history, thereby shaping skilled labor markets globally. Now, talking about the cybersecurity building, right? So cybersecurity building is actually referring to the development of or developing the skills, tools, and framework required or necessary for individuals and organizations to effectively manage and respond cybersecurity challenges. Now, the relevance include integration of the cyber capacity building into the TVET, which is crucial as we prepare trainees, students, or participants for emerging technology roles to ensure that vocational education remains relevant and enhances the overall cybersecurity resilience in the workspace. Okay, then let's move on to the role of skills in cybersecurity. Now, these are the essential cybersecurity skills needed by the industry. First one is the technical skills. As you know that cyber threat landscape uh, is developing, so we need cybersecurity professional to master a range of technical skills. Yeah, to prepare them with the knowledge which include the knowledge about the systems, network administration, and security protocols, yeah, to effectively protect the organization against cyber threat, including, providing the assistance to different organization regarding the defensive side of security. Because as you know that in cybersecurity we have red team, blue team, purple team, and something like the white team, right? So the next one is the soft skill, yeah, and cybersecurity. Now, although cybersecurity professional tends to have the technical skills, very deep understanding and very deep understanding and knowledge about the technical skills. But of course, we also need to equip them with the soft skills, yeah, such as communication, presentation skills, teamwork, problem solving, yeah. These are very crucial in cybersecurity to facilitate collaboration, ensure clear understanding of complex security issues among team members. Of course, it is also very important to in order to convey the message to the stakeholders, including the top management such as CEO, CISO, board of directors, and so on. Now, in terms of the skill development strategies, curriculum design would be to develop a robust curriculum that would integrate theoretical knowledge with practical skills, which is very essential or crucial for equipping students with the competency required by the or in the cybersecurity field. So beside the curriculum design, in terms of we developing a robust curriculum, we also need to have the practicals, hands-on practical training and workshop that would actually simulate how the learners, the participants apply what they learn, yeah, the theoretical concept in the real world scenario, thereby enhancing their problem solving abilities and technical acumen in cybersecurity. Now, these are the examples of the cybersecurity job roles. Examples include offensive security. As I already mentioned, that we have offensive security known as the red team, that includes pen tester, penetration testers, offensive incident response, red team specialists, forensic, and also defensive security, where we have the blue team here, which would include analysts, engineers, architects, technician, defensive incident response, and also forensic. Now, beside that, we also have the hybrid. Yeah, hybrid, known as the purple team, that includes or that might include DevSecOps researchers, instructors, and also managers. So we have red team, blue team, purple team. Now, in some organization, we might also have the role for the governance, risk, and compliance. That would include the risk advisors, auditors, and also consultants. And then also specialized or supporting group or job roles that include threat intel, malware analysts, and also program managers. So these are some of the cybersecurity job roles that require the participants to to master the skills in cybersecurity. And of course, if you look at the cybersecurity career roadmap here, you can see that we could actually include all of the certifications, industry certifications, starting from the foundational level, intermediate, advanced to expert level. Yeah. So this table or the figure here shows about several common roles or sorry, common roles in cybersecurity that include cybersecurity analyst, cybersecurity architect, yeah, bigger the engineer, instructor, and so on and so forth, including security consultant. So we could actually develop the participants or the students to understand about basic security or foundational, yeah, up to the expert level. Yeah. So certification here would be, I would say, an added point for the participants to build their knowledge and skills. And then this is just an example of the cybersecurity certification and career path recommended training certification. For example, we can start with the basic level that requires the participants to gather or to have the experience and knowledge regarding uh, networking or maybe something like operating systems and so on. So we can start with the basic level to the advanced level. Here we have three different what do you call these roles, like help desk or support specialist or IT technician, followed by pen tester, ethical hacker, or security auditor, and then cybersecurity analyst. So each of this role would require us to build you know, the knowledge and skills starting from the basic level to the advanced level so that they can even, become the expert by pushing them to get the knowledge and skills that are required for a specific role. Yeah, such as, for example, we can train them in CompTIA, CISA Plus, Pentest Plus, and even architecture-related course such as CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner. Okay, then next we'll move on to assessing current cybersecurity needs. Here we can see that there are several gaps in skills. Yeah. First, we will need to analyze the workforce requirements. So a comprehensive evaluation of existing job roles and responsibilities within the organization would help in understanding the skills required or specific skills required or that are currently lacking in the industry and need for effective cybersecurity. And also the stakeholder feedback and survey. This would allow us to gather insight from the employees, management. We can have this through structured survey reveals perceptions about the skill deficiency that would definitely enable targeted improvement in training and recruitment. Now, just an example, in my organization, we also analyze the workforce requirements based on the client's needs, yeah, or the client's need, yeah. So we also look at the, prospective jobs in LinkedIn, for example, and even from the actual industry, like my organization, my company is actually, we are a consulting company. We're doing penetration testing, information security audit, and some others. So we are trying to get the best talent in the industry by sometimes we also need to, develop our own talents internally, or perhaps get some, individuals from from senior high school or even in at a particular level. Yeah, we might also need to send them to vocational education and training just to get the required skills. Okay, now let's look at the regional variation in cybersecurity needs. Yeah, we could actually start with the global trends in the cyber threats. Yeah. So analyzing the prevailing cybersecurity threats on a global scale would assist organization in terms of identifying trends that could influence their security posture and also strategic planning. Uh, Like for example, the rise of malware or even ransomware globally. Also regarding localized skill requirements. So this is actually quite unique, understanding unique cybersecurity challenges, also regulation. Example, like in a specific region, in like for example in Southeast Asian or ASEAN countries, like for example in Indonesia, we need people to what do you call this, to become a DPO. Yeah, I mean we need people to become DPOs or data privacy officers. Yeah, because there are needs, or there are some needs in terms of you know providing the cybersecurity people that understands the nation and regional regulations. Yeah, just like understanding GDPR. Yeah, that would actually help their training program to equip workforce with necessary skills, because they could actually uh, you know um, adapt to, or relevant to their required skills locally. Next, we'll look at the curriculum integration of cybersecurity. So we will look at the framework for cybersecurity curriculum. Like, for example, we can have interdisciplinary approach or approaches that blend concept from various fields. Yeah, which could be something like from the field of technology, laws, ethics, uh, in order to actually create a comprehensive cybersecurity curriculum that would actually addresses the diverse challenges globally, and also incorporating real world scenarios. This is actually very crucial in terms of um, you know blending the real world scenario into the curriculum that would actually help students to apply, yeah, their theoretical knowledge to the practical situation where they need to do, or to apply their problem solving what do you call this skills, yeah, in preparing them to the actual cybersecurity challenges. Like for example, how do they apply the knowledge and skills in terms of incident response in case there are malware attacks, yeah, or ransomware attacks, which actually happen in many different countries. And best practices for curriculum development include collaboration with industry experts and continuous improvement process that would actually allow us to engage industry expert in terms of curriculum development, as well as continuous improvement processes, which allows regular evaluation and update at the curriculum based on the feedback from the industry experts, the students, and the other stakeholders. Okay, then I believe this would be the last one, partnership for effective capacity building. Yeah, so engaging industry partners would benefit the industry. I mean, would benefit the students or participants. So we usually collaborate with industry, um, or the organization would actually allow us to offer a lot of different advantages, including, access to, the top or cutting edge technologies, expertise sharing, or perhaps something like engaging with, partners such as AWS, Microsoft, Oracle, and so on and so forth. So, also the case studies for successful partnership that we can, we have a lot of different successful partnership with, the cutting edge technology or partners such as Microsoft, Oracle, AWS, especially AWS. They are very, eager to provide, or collaborate with us. Yeah. And also, regarding the government and education institution, um, policy, effective policies are crucial for building cyber capacity. So, this is actually regarding the role of government in creating supportive framework. Yeah. Such as, for example, in terms of providing the policy that would allow organization to ensure a skilled workforce. Like in the US, they have this DoD workforce requirements. Yeah. I can't really remember the number. I mean they have their own policy that will allow workforce to be certified in cybersecurity, whether it's through CompTIA, Easy Council, and so on. And it's also about the joint training initiative, yeah, between government bodies. Like for example, in the law enforcement here in Indonesia, we have the collaboration between the what do you call this, the police, yeah, the Indonesian National Police with other government bodies, which allow them to enhance the skills and knowledge. So this initiative could actually address specific industry needs and definitely bridge the gap between the academic theory and practical application. Okay, lastly, challenge in implementation include funding and financial support, as well as access to the infrastructure and tools. So these are actually related to resource constraint, financial blocking, and also having the right infrastructure would be, essential. Yeah, because when they do not have this funding and financial support, as well as no access to the infrastructure and tool, that would be limiting the development of the knowledge and skills required. And also about resistance to change. Sometimes there are, institutional barrier and culture shift in terms of education. Because changing educational culture involve rethinking traditional practices. So we need to make sure that uh, they embrace the innovation and flexibility. Okay, then yeah, I can't really remember my slide. So there's another one which is about the future direction for TVET and cybersecurity. So first is about emerging trends in cybersecurity education. So you can see that we have a lot of different, types of cybersecurity education through online, hybrid learning modes. They also offer something called cyber ranges, yeah, and online and hybrid learning models are very what do you call this acceptable, allowing flexibility. Students can learn from a website or web application, and also they could have something called cyber ranges, which allow them to do the practical hands-on without even setting up their own computers. Those they all can be done by logging onto a website or a particular virtual machine set up in the cloud, and also about adoption of AI and automation. Yeah, so as you can see that cybersecurity education nowadays include the use of AI and automation, like utilizing machine learning. And we have the policy recommendations such as enhancing national cybersecurity framework, which is crucial in terms of protecting infrastructure, like the Data Privacy Act and some other national cybersecurity framework, which allow the updated legislation and collaboration between sectors, as well as encouraging lifelong learning in cybersecurity to ensure that professionals stay current and updated in terms of evolving threats. Because as you know, that security landscape, cybersecurity threat landscape is evolving. So we need to make sure that everyone stay updated and Yeah, so get ready to to become the expert in, or perhaps the professional in cybersecurity by providing or by doing ongoing training. What do you call this? Opportunities. All right, that's I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Hello.
Sir
Yeah.
Sami. Yes. Sir, could you please unshare? Okay, that's it. So we're still waiting for the questions coming in from our online participants here in Zoom and also from our Facebook page during our live stream. So, sir, to start the ball rolling, how possible is it for cybersecurity to be integrated in Tibet? Since right now, most of the misconception that people would get is that when you say cybersecurity or ICT, it would oftentimes connotes to the STEM or the science and technology, engineering and mathematics. Sir Sami?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Let me just repeat the question again to start the ball
Yes. Go ahead.
rolling. Yes, sir. How viable is it for cybersecurity to become a part of the strategic area or one of the trust areas of Tibet, knowing full well that in today's industry, in today's landscape, most of the time people would often associate cybersecurity to STEM, which is science
Mhm.
and technology, engineering, and
Okay.
mathematics.
Yeah, is I mean, cybersecurity is I mean, I would say cybersecurity nowadays are very widely accepted in many different sectors, as well as what do you call this, science, yeah, like even in the STEM. So part of this would be I mean, cybersecurity might be part of the STEM as well. So I can say that everything could be accepted and be included in cybersecurity, because every almost every aspects relates to security. That's a short answer.
Yes, sir. And right now, sir, we are being joined by different Tibet administrators and educators across Southeast Asia, and even students.
Mm,
Actually, we saw students joining online, Universidad de Manila
yeah.
online. So, sir, what would be your piece of advice? Just since there
Mm-mm.
is a wide gap,
Mm-mm.
talent gap in terms of creating cybersecurity professionals across the
Mm,
Southeast Asia, to be specific. So, as a seasoned cybersecurity practitioner,
mm.
how should we start as an administrator integrating cybersecurity in our curriculum? What should be the first step that we should take?
Yeah, from my perspective, the first thing to do is to what do you call this? As I already mentioned in my slide earlier, that we need to also look at the current demand in cybersecurity market, and then start with equipping the students or the participants with um the knowledge. Like for example, we can start with basic or foundational security essentials, cybersecurity. Like for example, IC2, IC2.org, org. They started providing the free certification like the CC, certified in cybersecurity, that allows all people, more than 1 million people in the world, to actually assess the foundational level of certification offered by them without paying anything. So awareness is number one. Number one is awareness. Once they're aware, and they could actually start building their what do you call this, their skill set up to the from basic to expert level. So that's how IC2 org started with the CC, the cybersecurity, sorry, certified in cybersecurity. Because the curriculum include all of the foundational level essential for the student to start understanding what is actually security. How do they, how can they involve in cybersecurity? That's all. Thank you.
Okay, sir. I think the audience are very much enlightened with your
Yeah.
presentation, or I don't know if they are just shy. But I guess for the last question, sir, because I know you're really busy right
Yeah.
now, let's demystify cybersecurity as a practice. Because most of the time, people would think that you would have to be a technology savvy. You have to be a graduate
Mm.
of a 4-year course for you to be able to pursue cybersecurity. But then again, with the passage of TVET, how possible is it for someone practicing TVET to adopt the practice of cybersecurity, especially in the with the coming of the industry 5.0 and automation and all, sir?
Mm. Can you repeat? Sorry.
Okay, so
I don't really get it.
most of the time, sir, people would think that it would take someone like you need to graduate with a 4-year course for you to be able to pursue cybersecurity. But then again,
Oh,
sir,
okay.
looking at the way the industry works right now, that there are micro credentials, certification that you need
Mm-hmm.
for you to be able to
Yes.
practice cybersecurity, which actually has a connection with the way we practice the vet here in the Asia
Mm-mm.
Pacific. So
Okay.
how would we debunk that particular notion that cybersecurity is only for the technology savvy, that it's only
Okay.
for the professionals, but rather everyone or anyone who has the interest and the passion, and also in the
Okay.
defense sector
Mm.
can pursue cybersecurity.
All right. So remember that security or cybersecurity in the wider term, security is everyone's responsibility. Okay, that's the main motto. So because it's everyone's responsibility, we cannot say that these are only for professionals or those experts. No, we start understanding security and aware about cybersecurity from ourselves as individual because the attacks nowadays the attacks are against individual, not against the organization. If they want big money, they attack organization. But people is remember everyone people is the weakest link in cybersecurity. So if we are not aware about the threats, the attacks, like phishing, yeah, you don't have to be tech savvy to be attacked or to 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 defend yourself. You just need to understand how the attack works and how to prevent the attacks from happening. Like for example, do not click the link if you're not sure. That's very simple. Even even the elementary school student could actually understand, right? But the issue is because we're not aware in terms of cybersecurity and how to defend ourselves, that actually causing problem. Yeah. So again, it depends on us, and security is the responsibility of everyone. You don't have to become the expert to understand cybersecurity. We can start from very small amount of knowledge, awareness, then moving towards the higher level.
Very
Thank you.
well said, sir. Thank you very much. Again, everyone, cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility, and we should build a human firewall, if that's the right term, sir, for
Correct.
everyone. Yes, we should build
Yes.
a human firewall so that we ourselves can
Correct.
secure our family, our friends, and our community against the cyber attacks. I think, sir, there is one question from Miss
Yeah.
Annabelle Toy.
Mm-mm.
It seems that you were raising your hand a while ago. Kindly key in your question so that we can have Sir Sammy.
Yeah.
I know Sir
Last
Sammy.
question because I need
Yes,
to go back to my class.
to your class,
Yeah.
sir.
So sorry. Apologies for that.
It's okay, sir. It's always an honor to have you here in our session. Okay, it seems that Miss Annabelle is not has no question at all. Again, Sir Sammy, thank you
Okay.
very much. Okay, I'll give the
Thank
floor
you.
once
Thank
again to
you.
the
Yeah,
host.
allow me to yeah, really apologize for any inconvenience because I need to go back to my class. I'm currently teaching application security for banking. So thank you very much for your kind attention and see you next time.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr.
Permission to leave.
All right, sir. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, Miss Arlene,
Yulianto.
thank you.
Thank you, Sir Sammy.
All right. So We thank Dr. Yulianto for the very informative session and for imparting his knowledge to our participants. And we hope we can have him again in our future webinars. And so, moving forward, let us now proceed to our next speaker, who will be discussing digital identity protection and workforce cyber resilience. To officially open our second session, may I invite again Ms. Monghe to introduce our esteemed speaker from the Philippines.
Okay, thank you once again, Steph. Okay, our next speaker is a highly accomplished information and cybersecurity professional with 15 years of experience specializing in enterprise risk management, information security assurance, governance, and compliance. Currently, he serves as the president and CEO of Soros Services Incorporated, a cybersecurity advisory and consulting company. His executive career spans over 8 years, during which he was a former Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO, for both a major software engineering organization and a global bank. In these roles, he was responsible for leading the development and implementation of comprehensive cybersecurity policies, controls, and processes, including vulnerability management, threat intelligence, procurement, and supply chain security and overall program developments with CapEx and OpEx budgets. He also actively works with government agencies, specifically in the areas of defense and law enforcement. His expertise has been recognized with multiple honors, including being named the best cybersecurity professional in public sector at the PhilSec Awards 2022 and being listed as one of the top 25 fintech leaders to watch by the FT25 Awards. Without much further ado, let us give our warmest welcome to our next speaker, Mr. John Patrick Litan. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Arlene, and good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Loud and clear, sir.
Thank you so much. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here to conduct this training. It's an honor and a pleasure to be part of this one. So, yeah, let me share my screen for you guys to see our topic for today. All right. So our topic for today is more focused in terms of digital identity and protections and workforce cyber resilience. So it more towards on how we manage information and data of us as a Tibet, for example, and to our stakeholders and students who are uh, keen to learn new expertise and be part of the professional uh, network with the Tibet. So in our introduction for today, if we're going to see this image, is that you will see that EdTech is part of the industry's highest fraud rate growth, right? So we're turning the traditional learning into new and digital or online aspects of teachings, right? So after the COVID, everyone's transitioning to online. So for us to deliver trainings, uh, modulars, and so on, so that we can still meet the learning requirements in terms of the time, right? So for the sectors, you will see that the online media, banking, insurance is the second, third is fintech, is the fourth is edtech. Now, if we're analyzing this, we see that being part of the edtech is also a scope of TVET. But if we're looking at it in ourselves as a user, all this information, we provide those our own information within this platform. So we all have information or registration in online media, right? Anyone here has a Facebook and LinkedIn, right? So you all have online entities, right? And then you all have mobile banking that you're using the fintech. It's under the fintech, right? And then you have online information in terms of online education, and you use e-commerce for deliveries like Shopee, Lazada, or anything else. So it means we need to have this mindset, not just in Tibet, but as individual on how we use the internet and what is our uh, behavior using the internet. All right. So that's why sometimes if we see EdTech, oh, we're in the fourth or we're in the third or something like that, uh, we're missing the part of that we all using this information. And as a Tibet professionals or instructors, for example, you need to understand on how will you separate your private or personal information and your Tibet information so that you can segregate both and you have a different behavior of using those information for you. All right. So what is the key concept for this one? The first is the digital identification. So we have our online information like LinkedIn and Facebook. So we're building up our digital footprint in anything else because sometimes you can register into another app or different app using your Facebook or Google. Automatically, you will be registered there by using your existing account from a different platform. So you're increasing your digital footprint. All right. Now, it might affect the workforce cyber resilience because it depends on the end user on how you behave, on how you use the online, right? Or what is your interest, right? What is the narrative you're always following? That's are the key concept that we need to think of on how we work as a Tibet professionals and instructors. So this collective information, like your staff, your graduates, like you need to act as a human firewall. So you need to be more aware on how and where you use your information, right? Because the challenge here is that the threat is growing and advancing. And for us, we need to also cook up in this uh, changing threat landscape on the cybersecurity. And we should be more aware about on how and where we provide our information. Like on the report in terms of the global digital payment fraud, it's all about exceeds 50 million for 2025. So based on my experience on the threat intelligence, because I work closely with our defense as well, we support them in terms of threat intelligence, digital profiling, and so on. We've seen a lot of information floating around on the internet, especially in an educational sector, right? That's the main problem that we see is how the people use their information separately. All right. So, in terms of AI powered and deepfake scams and data poisoning, AI powered attacks is used to possible send information. So you have personal email that you're using for social media account, and you have professional email for Tibet, right? So you need to ensure that your information in both uh, practice should be separate at the same time. Like if someone's issued a laptop for you, used for training, you should not using it for your personal activities. Like you use your that laptop for login to Facebook, right? Using it for online shoppings and so on, because that behavior is a different aspect, and that device has a different purpose. So you should not use your professional devices for your personal activities. It might end up that you might be able to download some malicious documents, visiting malicious URLs that is affected by a drive-by download. If you know that, the drive-by download is that once you click that certain link and see any advertisement or anything else, it will automatically download something malicious on your device without you knowing it, right? So that's the power of the AI attack. And deepfake scam is that you need to also manage using your professional pictures that can be used against you, right? So data poisoning is the attackers manipulate AI training data, causing security systems to misidentify threats or behave incorrectly. So, like for example, if you're using your professional device in your personal usage, right? And then it happens that you visited a website that is infected of a malware, like malware by malware advertising. So this type of malware is injected in a advertisement. So once it pops up into your browser, your endpoint might be uh, affected. All right. So what will happen if you're a Tibet professional and we need to push our trainings, increase our professionals and enrollees to our programs? So what is the connection and why us as a Tibet and why you as part of the Tibet? So Tibet professionals, it came across a different practices, but most of them are now interconnected. That's the changes in terms of our professional works and the professional digital professional works and digitalization that we do in terms of coping up with the automation. All right. So, like for example, welders using smart equipments, to medical assistants handling patient records are now interacting with sophisticated and network systems. So sometimes it's not just on the network, but also integrated outside the network using an API. So those information and records potentially some proprietary intellectual property like your CAD designs, result of or your X-rays and anything else, it can be exposed and leaked online if we're not aware of how we use our credentials and information. So what would be the effect, right? So Tibet is part of the supply chain. So we are the endpoint. If someone's enrolls to us and they provide information to us, it means they trusted us that we can protect those informations. So if we cannot protect those informations, that might affect our reputational, like protecting institutional reputation. If those information leaks, then it might affect those peoples that they might not trust you for the online information. So you might not able to collect those information online. All right. And then cyber skills are the job skills at the same time. So why is it a job skills at the same time? If we're teaching about cybersecurity, we also need to know how to practice it, because how our student will believe in us if us, the instructor, don't know how to designate and how to use our professional and personal information online, right? So it's a ripple effect. It has a ripple effect. So that's why the supply chain is our endpoint. We're the endpoint because students are enrolling to us. They trusted the informations, right? Once they enroll for a cybersecurity courses, for example, they have the high confidence that you're teaching this, and they know that you know how to protect those informations. And if you know to protect those informations, then the reputational of our agencies or training institutions will gain more trust to the students. All right. So why is that? We need to protect the digital identity because we collect information. So it attributes activities, right, in a different ways. So in digital identity, so we have logins or credentials that we use. We have browsing histories and cookies, right? We have online purchases, like for example, if our courses needs to be paid online, so it's an online purchases and transactions. And then if our environment is in the cloud as well, social media and login credentials. These are the information that we need to protect. So what are the core components? So one of the examples is that credentials, passwords. If our agencies or an entity who provide trainings as an online platform for the education, does the platform supports multi-factor authentications? So for me, as an student with a high awareness about security, I always think or check if the platform support this kind of baseline security. So if the platform doesn't have two-factor authentication, I might not put in my credit card or my debit card on the payment system because there's no extra protection on my information there on the platform. All right. And then some financial records. That's the financial record and health information and purchase history that might be possibly part of the leak if there's no additional security implemented on the platform that we have, right? And now browsing history. So most of the time we have this called cookies. So cookies, sometimes we don't see it as a threat or risk. But every time that you accept the cookie, it doesn't just give you it doesn't just give you, or you give your allowing the platform to get your information, but all the cookies inside your browser. So it's not just on the single website that you're allowing them. It means once you allow the cookies, all the stored cookies in your browser will be scraped by the web application. So if you notice, once you visit an e-commerce website and you browse for example, a iPhone 17, for example, once you visit, go back to the Facebook and you will see advertisement that is focused on iPhones. So it means all the website that you have visited and you allow the cookies, they have all those information already. So you're increasing your digital footprint. So for your personal, so private files and finances like bank accounts, personal accounts, and anything else, so you need to also separate it from the professional, as I said earlier, so that you can minimize your risk. Because if you mix it on your own behavior, there might be some negligence in part of you. Like for me as a former CISO, we always check our employees' laptop on what is their behavior using those laptop, like a corporate one. We block Facebook, uh, we block Twitter or anything else that they can use it, misuse the information from the corporate devices sometimes. Why? Because they might share some information within that laptop that we cannot control once they send it to the Facebook. So that's why we have a higher standard and security baseline uh, implementation on the corporate side rather than the personal devices. All right. And then you will have your professional digital IDs, like you have work access and career capital, like for example, industry certifications and specialized software licenses, for example. So you don't want to leak your licenses at the same time if you're managing multiple licenses. Learning management system. So if you're an administrator of an LMS and you're using that device in your personal account, so it might infect, or you don't have any awareness that you're downloading malware. So what we call this is the info stealer. So once the info stealer installed into your device, you don't have any idea that that malware is collecting all the information that you're typing or save in your device. So that's why we need to also separate those behaviors on and functions, so for us to reduce our risk. All right. So it increases your negligence if you're not aware of that, because in terms of the investigation, you need to go through again on the taking up seminars or any learning requirements. So for you to understand those requirements, or it might end up that you might directly violating or neglecting the organizational policy. All right. So now, if we're talking about this, what are the common threats to the digital identity? So the common is the phishing. So phishing, this is just a general sending of multiple or uh, emails. No, it's not targeted. So phishing is more targeted. Like for example, if your information is part of the leak, like for a Tibet or your institution, you're performing trainings, and your platform uh, is you're showing that you have, for example, 100,000 students on the platform. So I need to understand who are the key stakeholders of that platform and then initiate a spear phishing. So it means I need to target the higher ups. So for me to get more higher authorization on the systems. So It can be targeted the administrator. I can go to your LinkedIn admin, and if I see that you're a system administrator for LMS of this type of agency or this entity, so I might get more information about you and send you a phishing so that I can get more information and take over your information. Then it will end up on the credential stuffing and account takeover. So once your information is part of the data breach, often sold in the dark web, as we mentioned here, so they use it to identify from what services you're using that information. So once we identify, like for example, we end up on a LMS platform, so I can use that information and log into your account and get all the information of the students. Once I download it, I can sell it online and make profit out of it, right? Like a B2B. So I can sell it to your competitor, right? So your competitor can buy it and then get more aggressive in terms of marketing, providing uh, more discount in terms of the trainings and so on. So it will directly affect your reputation and your operational and financial aspect. And then deep fake, phishing, and AI scam. So this is the growing problem as of the moment. So phishing is a phishing over the phone. So it's over the call, and there's an AI that they're using for a call. Like for example, if you have Telegram or WhatsApp, you might experience just someone sending you a voicemail or a voice message without anything else, right? But once you click those voice message, they might get your information of your cell phone, exact location, like from what part of the globe are you in, and then they might able to take over your Telegram or WhatsApp information. So that's how the AI very risky as of the moment. So as you need to have this higher awareness that if you don't have any discussion or communication with a certain entity online, you should not communicate to them. Just delete it directly. So you always practice that I don't respond to a text or a call without knowing you who you are first. And then sometimes I do not accept LinkedIn requests if I didn't know you personally, right? Or someone will vouch you that they know you personally. So I'm creating a barrier there just to avoid fake identities, stolen identities. Sometimes they just browsing your account and they will develop more connection with you because you're part of their target. All right. So that's why the common threats. This is the three common threats for our entity. Why? Because hackers do not hack today. They just log in, right? Back in the days, we need to hack web application, mobile application, and so on just to get this information. Right now, we just need to wait for a malware to dump your data and information on the dark web, and then from there, we can scrape it out and use those informations against you. Okay. Now, what are the three pillars? JP, how can we protect or have a high level protection for our information? Aside from working on your behavior, separating your personal and professional accounts, so you need to also have the strong security controls in the first line of defense is yung authentication. So you need to have the authentication. From that authentication, you need to have two-factor authentication. Why? Because if your account is compromised and part of the leak, right, the attacker will not able to use your information. They need to initiate forget password. So once they initiate forget password and you didn't initiate that forget password, you will have the idea that your information or credential is already compromised. So that's the time that you are the one should execute the forget password so that they will not able to use your information already. So always to have 2FA and MFA. as a first line of defense. You need to be more vigilant, the second one. So you always need to be aware, where did you use your information? In online and a physical aspect. In online, where did I sign up? Did I really sign up to this kind of application? Right? And in the conferences, did I really provide my details in that conference? It's very common that if you attend a conference, you need to sign up in each booth, providing your information, email, right? So you need to ask how they uh, distract those information after the conference, and how long they are retaining this information of you, right? Sometimes this one of my experiences that the conference is calling me on my number, but my email address or corporate address is not updated, because I already resigned on that organization. So it means the information they have is outdated. And then the conference group or this entity is asking what is my updated information. So I always decline providing my updated information. Why? Because I do not provide in update information through online. If you want me to provide you my updated information, I should be physically aware and there in your conference. So for me to give that information, because you don't know where your information is going, right? In online. The next is the privacy. You always limit your personal and professional data that is publicly accessible to reduce the attacker's ability to craft convincing spear phishing attack. So every time that I can search your information, like if I just Google my email, or you can try Google your information, like Google your email address, Google your mobile number, or Google your full name, just notice what is the response from Google. So if you have a lot of information there, it means I can use that against you already. I can build a what we call this is digital profiling. I can profile you. I can see where your comment is. I can see what you're following, what page you're following, what is your LinkedIn, who is your connection within the LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. So it creates a story already. So from a data, a simple mobile number, I can provide more details or contextual information against that mobile number, like seeing it registered in Twitter. The number is registered in uh, Instagram, and so on. So I can see your digital footprint in just a mobile number. So we need to be aware about the privacy. So that's why my practice, for example, is that I have two phones. So my other phone is for my family, and the other phone is for my business. So everyone who's calling to my second phone, the white one, the iPhone, is more towards the business, and the black one is more towards my family. So I know who's calling, and I know how will I decline or drop a call, because I don't know you. Why are you calling on my personal phone? I'm not using it anymore, right? So you have that awareness. You have the vigilance of knowing the boundaries where you share your information, right? So that's the best practice that we can have. That's the baseline. So beyond the training, what is the cyber resilience? So what will be the effect in terms of the cyber resilience? So we need to have the awareness, knowing the risk. What is my risk if I'm going to register or enroll to this platform or this institution, right? The resilience is that the ability to anticipate, withstand, recover, and adapt from an attack. If our entity or an institution has an online platform to provide online learning, they need to ensure that they protect the information, and they have the protection, baseline protection for that platform. So we need to always anticipate that we're already breached. You know that mindset, the breach mindset, that you always think that you already breached, right? So that you will always check, how can we ensure that we protect our students online, right? And then if there's an attack, how can we ensure that the services that we have is online, And if there is any incident or events happen affecting our services, how can we recover, right? After we recover, what is our lesson learned? So we need to go back on the anticipation. It can happen again. So we need to protect our information and infrastructure about this incident, so for us to ensure that it will not happen again. So that it will create a culture, not just one time class. So it means that as a Tibet, or in our professional network in Tibet, we always need to be more aware about on how we use our information online. Okay. So in three basic steps toward workforce resilience, we need to have a foundational skills. You see this? We go back on the basic again: secure password, multi-factor authentication, and we should understand and identify phishing. Like, you need to understand what is phishing, like if there's any urgency, did I register to this kind of services? If not, you don't need to respond to it, just delete it, and okay. Okay, practical application. Use an interactive methods. Talk about phishing simulation. You need to have tabletop exercises for the top management, right? And then real world scenario relevant to the TVET field. So for example, let's have a test for business continuity planning. So sometimes the testing for this BCP, or business continuity planning, are more towards on paper. But in reality, on my experience doing BCP, we really cut off the service, and we need to monitor how the uh, service can go back and recover. Like for example, in just 30 minutes, the portal is already online and can serve the students again, right? That's a practical application and continuous learning. So we need to promote ongoing education, regular updates, and knowledge sharing at the same time, just like this. All right. So I think that's my last slide. If you have any questions, I can answer it for you.
Sir JP, could you please
So much.
unshare?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
For a while.
Sir. Again, thank you, sir. Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir, for I know how busy you are right now. Actually, Sir JP and I don't know if you would still remember, we're able to be we first met online in one of our career symposium before, and then
Yep.
we're part of the big a small cybersecurity community, so it's really a great pleasure having you here today, this time around for Tibet. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but you're not new to the Tibet and cybersecurity convergence. You're partner with Tesla.
Yeah.
Yes,
My
sir.
company partnered with Tesla.
Because, sir,
Uh,
yes, go ahead, sir.
yes, because I see. I conducted 5 days training to test the region 3 in Corfield. So from there,
Mm.
I see their setup in terms of lab. So I was amazed about the setup. So I pushed through that. I want to help you out in terms of how and what you need to do in terms of more maximizing those workstation. So we have a partnership. So I will help them design the training facilities, review the curriculum as well, and some of our training, in-house training of my company, will be part of the micro credentials of
Mm.
Corpel Philippines.
Yes.
Because I think we need to have more accessible trainings for cybersecurity. I believe on that. So that's why we can offer it on a private sector if you have more budget, so you can directly enroll to us. But if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
have, you can go to Corfield, apply for a training, and then you can get the same quality of trainings that we provide at the same time. So it's more have more options for you. Yep.
Actually, sir, here at CPSC, we are also doing the same. We're under the same mission, I guess. Since most of our viewers right here are Tibet administrators, educators, professionals, and lecturers coming from the different event institutions across Asia
Mm.
Pacific. And I believe that they would be really interested to partake in such training since cybersecurity is, I wouldn't say it's an emerging in in our community, it's long been, cybersecurity is there. It's not being prioritized per se, but it's been there. But
Yeah.
for the industry nowadays, especially in the academe, cybersecurity has come into full circle just because of the industry 4.0 and industry
Mhm.
5.0. So as
Yep.
someone who has been in the industry and also has been practicing the vet, so to speak, sir. So what words of wisdom can you share with our administrators if they would be interested to integrate cybersecurity as part of their course offering or as part of their curriculum?
Yeah, I think the benefit would be you're helping to close the gap in terms of the security scarcity. Especially, it's not just in the Philippines, but it's a global problem, right? So there's a lot of certifications like what Semi discussed, right? So why not TVET or TESDA can provide the same quality of education, but more accessible and more affordable for the people, right? Like as one of the example, I reached the level of being a CISO and a CEO without any certification. Some just telling you that you cannot reach that far if you're not certified. But I'm the living proof that you can still merge or transition to cybersecurity without those certifications. Why? If you already prove that you have the technicalities, understanding, and knowing the business in terms of the cybersecurity, you can get the job already. Certification is just the attestation that you know the basic concept and domains of the cybersecurity specific on your practice, right? The only thing is that as for me as a CISO, I always look at on how you work on deliver the job, right? So like for giving you wisdom is that you don't look at the certification at all. I always took free trainings as always. I always go to YouTube if I have some interest of learning new things. You don't need to get all the certification. If you want to learn about network security, just go to YouTube, learn the basics on the YouTube, and then work on your way building your own lab on your laptop, right? If you have a lower specs, you can search for setting up a low specs lab for networking. You will see those resources already. So I take advantage on the internet back then, and then from there I develop and climb the corporate ladder without any certifications. So yeah, and I'm hoping that the vet can also provide those quality and as part of my help within the talent scarcity. So that's why my company offers our certifications and training to TESDA as part of their micro credentials, so that if you're focusing more on offensive security, you can enroll there. So all the micro credential that related to offensive security will be available there. Like if you want to focus on mobile application, we will provide a mobile application focused training. And if you want more into the governance and business security, we will provide the same aspect of certification and training to that. It's more toward focus, because the only problem is that when you say, I want to learn cybersecurity, it's a broader aspect of cybersecurity. I'm going to ask you, what domain in cybersecurity you
Correct.
would like to learn? Because if you're going to learn the whole cybersecurity, then you're not going to end well because
Yes.
you're not specializing into one domain. So,
Yes.
right, there is application security, network, there's a GRC, there's an
Jersey.
offensive, and so on. So, yeah, I think we need to develop more focus in specialization, so for us to help closer the gap of the talent problem.
And trainers as well, sir, because nowadays one of the things that is being required, like what you've said, you're a student of life. if I may just
Mm-hmm.
say. You're the student apply because the industry taught you how to maneuver through the cybersecurity industry. But now, nowadays, sir, it's good that we have organizations like, of course, Tesla. We have CPSC, sir. Hopefully, we can
Mm-hmm.
also do
Mm-hmm.
the same venture, going through the regional levels with the Asia Pacific, and that's, sir. Now, going back, sir, to the concept of cybersecurity, is it too late for everyone to learn cybersecurity? Because like what I've asked Sir Semi a while ago, some of us would have this misconception that no, it's too late for me. I'm already old. I cannot learn that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the divide, the misconception, the nuances about learning cybersecurity, since for them it's a new concept. But then again, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. Is it too late for us, especially for
I think no.
administrators?
I think no. I think no. Kasi if we're going to look at it in the perspective, you need to ask yourself, what is your specialization first? Like for example, uh, if your specialization is more towards application development, so you're starting your career a developer or anything else, and you've been there for like you're a dev of a COBOL already, and then you're still developing COBOL until now in 2025. So how can you transition to that?
Correct.
You can go in terms of shifting into more focus aspect like
Mhm.
secure coding, application security, infrastructure security, because you are more towards on that specific one, and the adjustment is a little in terms of learning, instead of you shifting to a different aspect, like you're doing development and you're going to digital forensic. So your ship needs to have a bigger requirements for you to learn the digital forensic and incident response. But you can learn that specifically. What my style, I can share it to you, right? So what my style is that first I work as a application security engineer pen tester in Globe Telecom. While I'm working on that, I'm interested in terms of network security. So while working on my specialization, I'm developing my learning in terms of the network security. Did I took an CCNA? Did I took any certification in networking? No. What I want is the understanding of networking. So I just enrolled to a free course understanding the switching, routing, or anything else, and then apply it to my specialization. Why? Because it will improve me. Now, if I'm going to switch to networking, I have the baseline knowledge already, right? So I don't need to go through that basic learning again, but I need to learn the network security protocols na. So it lessens the time that I need to for the learning curve that I have. So yeah, it's not too late, no. You can go GRC, governance, risk and compliance, if you're not in the coding. But if you're more towards the business, go to the governance and risk and compliance. There's no coding at all. You just need to learn the risk management and so on and so forth. So yeah,
Just have to you have that passion for research, a lot of
yeah,
reading,
research
uh,
and a lot of reading.
and
Agree.
passion to explore, of course, because the trend
Yeah,
in cybersecurity is really evolving. It doesn't stay stagnant. So I really have to read this one out. From
sure.
Catherine Ramos Angeles, thank you, Sir JP, for mentioning Porfield Bulacan and our partnership, watching from Porfield Bulacan.
Yes
Okay.
po.
I
Yeah.
hope
So
CPSC would also do the same, sir. We can replicate
yeah. Let
the same
me know.
effort as
Let
well.
me know on how we can help as well to you, because like for us, if we're going to review some curriculum on how we can augment your courses into the real life, because sometimes we need to also help the organization to understand what they really needs, because sometimes the companies also don't know what they need, right?
Yes.
So we need to also be part of that understanding at the same.
And we bridge the gap there from the
Yes, we
industry
bridge
to
the
the
gap.
institute to the institutes. Okay, do we have any other questions, Steph? Do you see any questions? I think, sir, they're all really interested. They are have a well grasp of all the topics that we were able to discuss for today. Again, Sir JB, on behalf of CPSC, thank you very much. It was a nice session having you both, Sir Semi. They're fresh from BootCon, by the way. Yeah, fresh from RootCon. So I know these people are really tired and really, really, really looking forward to meet everyone from the Tibet industry. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a nice day. And thank you
Please
guys
stay,
for the
sir.
opportunity.
There's still
Yep.
another part of the session, sir.
Oh, sure, sure. Yep. I'll
All right, so thank you so much, Ms. Mohe and Sir JP. So allow me to read the details of the certificate that we are awarding for you. The Colombo Flagstaff College awards the Certificate of Recognition to Mr. John Patrick Rita for sharing his expertise as research speaker in the international webinar on From Skills to Security, Empowering Tibet Through Cyber Capacity Building, held today via Zoom. Sir, we are grateful to have you here today. And once again, let's give him a virtual round of applause. So, of course, before we end this session, may I request everyone to please open their cameras and have our group photo together with Sir JP. So, ICT, please take the lead. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, please open your camera. Okay, let's just wait for the others to open their cameras. Okay, ready. Ready, 1, 2, 3, smile. One more, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, next batch, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, last one, smile. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ICT. So that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you very much to our participants, to Dr. Semi and Sir JP for sharing their expertise in this session, and also to Ms. Monghe for facilitating the session. I would also like to extend our appreciation to ICT team for assisting us in this webinar. So for everyone's information, we are hosting a series of international webinars for TVET professionals, educators, and practitioners across our member countries. So if you are interested in joining our upcoming webinars, please feel free to contact the Research Publications and Information Division. I will leave the email here in the Zoom chat. Kindly indicate your proposed topics based on your area of expertise and attach your resume or CV when sending your email. So this is also a great opportunity to engage with CPSC and practice knowledge sharing across the region. For the attendance and evaluation, the link will be flashed on screen. The link will be open for 15 minutes. So once you accomplish the attendance, you will receive an email for the evaluation. Then after that, you will be able to claim your certificate. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day ahead.